My husband spent our daughter's college fund on his secret second family and told me, she can get loans. I have real responsibilities. I didn't fight but showed up at his company Christmas party with proof of his embezzlement. I'll never forget the look on James's face when I walked in wearing my red dress, manila folder tucked under my arm. The entire executive floor of Meridian Financial went silent, champagne flutes paused midair. His secretary whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for half the room to hear. James recovered quickly, flashing that $10,000 smile that had once made my knees weak. "Honey, what a surprise. I thought you weren't feeling well." His hand gripped my elbow, steering me toward the exit. I just smiled, looked him directly in the eyes, and said loud enough for his CEO to hear, "Well," I suddenly felt motivated to attend when I discovered where my daughter's $150,000 college fund went. For 15 years, I'd been the perfect corporate wife. I wore the right clothes, hosted the right dinner parties, laughed at the right jokes. I was the respectable accessory James needed to climb from senior manager to CFO. The wife who'd given up her own career at PricewaterhouseCoopers to raise his child and maintain his home in Oakwood Heights, where houses started at $1, $2 million, and everyone drove either a Tesla or a Range Rover. I was invisible except when useful, and I'd accepted that bargain until the day I couldn't anymore. It started with a simple call from Lily's dream school. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm just following up about the incomplete financial aid application, since you've indicated you won't be using the college fund mentioned in the initial paperwork." My stomach dropped. What college fund? The one James and I had been building for 16 years. The one I regularly saw statements for, showing a healthy $150,000. I managed a professional, "I'll look into that," before hanging up and diving into our financial records. 3 hours later, I discovered the truth. The entire account had been systematically drained over 8 months, with transfers to an account I didn't recognize. When I called our bank, they told me both our names were on the withdrawal slips. My signature had been forged with impressive precision. I didn't confront James immediately. The loyal, naive wife would have, rushing in with accusations and tears. But 15 years in accounting before becoming a stay-at-home mom had taught me something. Follow the money. So I did. That night, I told James I was visiting my sister in Phoenix for a few days. He barely looked up from his MacBook Pro. "Sounds great. Tell Megan I said hi." He didn't notice I didn't pack a bag. Instead, I checked into the Holiday Inn 10 minutes from our house and began my investigation. The account number led me to a bank in Riverside, a city about 45 minutes from our home in the opposite direction of James's office. With some social engineering and my knowledge of banking procedures, I convinced a teller that I was trying to send a surprise gift to my husband's other account. She helpfully confirmed it was a joint account under the names James Bennett and Melissa Crawford. I'd never heard of Melissa Crawford. Google and social media filled in the blanks quickly. Melissa Crawford, 34, real estate agent, lived in a lovely 4-bedroom in Riverside. Her Facebook showed a boy around 7 and a girl about 5. Children who looked eerily like James. Children whose family photos sometimes included a man whose face was just visible enough at the edges for me to recognize my husband. 8 years. He'd been living a double life for 8 years. I hired a private investigator who confirmed everything within days. James spent 3 nights a week at business meetings that were actually at his second home. He'd even attended school functions, soccer games, and had a reputation as a devoted father in Riverside. The PI's photos showed him pushing a shopping cart through Whole Foods, the little girl sitting in the child's seat, the boy walking beside him. They were laughing. James was wearing shorts and flip-flops, casual clothes he claimed to hate. I forwarded everything to a lawyer, who advised me to document all assets immediately. Then I did something the lawyer cautioned against. I confronted James. I waited until Lily was at her friend's house. I placed the PI's photos on the kitchen island. When James came home, he froze in the doorway, briefcase still in hand. I'll give him credit. He didn't insult my intelligence by denying it. "How long have you known?" he asked, placing his briefcase carefully on the counter like it might break. "Long enough to know our daughter's college fund is now your son's playroom edition and your daughter's dance lessons." I kept my voice level, watching his face for any sign of remorse. There wasn't any. Instead, he straightened his Hermes tie and said, "Lily can get student loans. I have real responsibilities now." "Real responsibilities?" I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. "They need me, Diana. Melissa's kids are young. Lily's almost an adult. Lily is 16, and those children have existed to you for less time than our mortgage." He had the audacity to look annoyed. "I don't expect you to understand, but I've made my decision. I've already spoken to a lawyer. You'll be taken care of, within reason." "Within reason," I echoed, a strange calm settling over me. In that moment, looking at this stranger in expensive Italian leather shoes, I realized I'd wasted 15 years of my life. "I'll be staying at the Riverside house for a while," he continued, already turning away. "My lawyer will contact yours." As he reached for his briefcase, I said, Does your friend Charles know? He paused. Charles? Your CEO. Does he know about your creative accounting methods? James turned slowly, color draining from his face. What are you talking about? I smiled. I'm a certified forensic accountant, James. Did you forget that when you started moving company funds through shell accounts? Updated. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up overnight. Thanks for all the supportive messages. To answer the top questions, yes, I had solid proof of the embezzlement, coming up in part 3, and no, I hadn't suspected anything before this. Would you have confronted him immediately or done what I did? The look on his face was worth every second of the pain. In that moment, I saw something I'd never seen in 15 years of marriage. Fear. Real, genuine fear in the eyes of James Bennett, CFO of Meridian Financial, master of the universe, and now, cornered animal. You're bluffing, he managed, but his right eye twitched, his tell since college. Remember how you always said I was wasting my talents doing the books for Lily's school fundraisers? I picked up my laptop and turned it to face him. I got curious after finding out about your second mortgage. Started looking into those special projects you've been managing. The ones with the unusual payment structures. James lunged for the laptop, but I snapped it shut. It's already backed up in 3 different places, and with people you don't know. He switched tactics instantly, his face softening. Diana, honey, you're upset. I understand, but you're confused about the financials. Those transactions are complicated, approved by the board. The Cayman wire transfers? The invoices to companies that don't exist? The way you've been skimming 2% off every major acquisition for the past 5 years? I tilted my head. Is that what you mean by complicated? His face hardened again. You'll never prove it, and no one would believe you over me. I nodded thoughtfully. You're probably right. That's why I reached out to Sheila Martin. Who? The SEC investigator, who's been quietly looking into Meridian's acquisition patterns since July. That wasn't entirely true. I hadn't contacted the SEC yet, but James didn't need to know that. His breathing changed, became shallow, rapid. You're lying, he whispered. Am I? Check your email. I'd sent him a message just before he arrived. Home, carefully crafted to look like an accidental forward of a conversation with the SEC. It was a bluff, but an effective one. James grabbed his phone, scrolled frantically, then stared at me with naked hatred. You vindictive bitch. That's not very professional, James. What would Charles say? I watched as he calculated his options, his jaw working back and forth. Finally, he grabbed his briefcase. This isn't over. Actually, it is. I stood up. But don't worry about Lily's college fund. Unlike you, I've been planning for contingencies. He slammed the door so hard a family photo crashed to the floor, the glass shattering across our smiling faces from happier times. Once I was sure he was gone, I called Lily and told her to stay at her friend's for the weekend. Then I poured myself a generous glass of Cabernet and really got to work. What James didn't know was that I hadn't been idle these past 16 years. While he thought I was just planning charity galas and carpooling, I'd maintained my professional certifications and kept up with former colleagues. I'd even done occasional consulting work under my maiden name, building a reputation separate from James Bennett's wife. One of those colleagues was now the chief risk officer at Meridian. Mark had been trying to get me to come work for them for years, but James had always shut it down, claiming it would complicate things. Now I understood why. I called Mark from a burner phone I'd purchased earlier that day. I need to meet. Privately. It's about James. Mark didn't ask questions. My house, 1 hour. I arrived to find not just Mark, but also Vivian Chen, Meridian's general counsel. Mark must have sensed the seriousness of the situation. Diana, Vivian started. Mark says we can trust you completely. What's this about? I placed my laptop on the table. I've identified approximately $4.3 million in funds that have been misappropriated through a series of shell companies over the past 5 years, all linked to projects directly overseen by my husband. For the next 2 hours, I walked them through everything I'd found, the fake vendors, the inflated invoices, the offshore accounts. Mark looked physically ill. Vivian took meticulous notes, her expression giving nothing away. If this is accurate, she finally said, it's not just fireable, it's criminal. It's accurate, I assured her. And there's more. He's been using the same methods to drain our personal accounts, including our daughter's college fund. Mark shook his head. Jesus, Diana, I'm so sorry. Don't be. Just tell me what happens next. Vivian closed her notebook. Normally, we would conduct an internal investigation, then involve law enforcement. But given James's position and your situation, we need to be strategic. The company Christmas party is next Saturday, Mark said slowly. Charles expects every executive to be there, including James. And me, I added. The dutiful executive. Wife. Vivian nodded. It would give us time to verify your findings, prepare the board, and have security in place. I thought about it. He's planning to file for divorce. Once he realizes what I've found, he might run. Then we don't let him know you've talked to us, Mark said. Let him think your threat was a bluff, that you're still deciding what to do. Can you maintain appearances for another week? Vivian asked. I thought of Lily, of her future, of the life James had stolen from all of us. I've been maintaining appearances for 15 years. One more week is nothing. The next 7 days were surreal. James moved most of his clothes to his other home, but kept up appearances by coming to ours every other day. He was coldly polite, treating me like an unpleasant business transaction he needed to complete. He even had the nerve to ask if I would still be attending the Christmas party. Of course, I said, smiling over my coffee. I wouldn't miss it. He looked relieved, probably thinking I was playing along to save face. In reality, I was working with Meridian's internal audit team every night, providing them with access to hidden accounts, explaining James's methodology. By Thursday, they had verified everything I'd found and uncovered even more. The total was now closer to $5.8 million. The night of the party, I dressed with special care. The red dress was new, purchased with my own money from a consulting job James knew nothing about. I styled my hair, applied makeup with precision, and even wore the diamond earrings he'd given me for our 10th anniversary. The perfect corporate wife, one last time. When I arrived at the venue, the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons, James was already there, holding court with the board members, champagne in hand. His smile faltered when he saw me, but he recovered, quickly excusing himself to intercept me. You came, he said, scanning my face for signs of what I might do. I said I would. I accepted a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Appearances matter. Isn't that what you always taught me? His eyes narrowed. Diana? James, Charles boomed, approaching us with his wife. And the lovely Diana, so glad you could join us tonight. I beamed at Charles, playing my part perfectly. I wouldn't miss it. James has been so excited about the Mitchell acquisition closing before year-end. Charles looked pleased. He should be. That deal will transform the company. And I understand the financial structure is quite innovative, I added. James's grip on my elbow tightened painfully. Diana's being modest. She's helped me think through some of the complexities. Is that so? Charles looked intrigued. I didn't realize you were involved, Diana. Oh, I've been reviewing quite a lot of James's work recently. I pulled the manila folder from my clutch. In fact, I have some interesting findings I'd love to share with you. The color drained from James's face. Honey, this isn't the time. Actually, Vivian said, appearing suddenly at Charles's side. Now is the perfect time. Charles, could we speak privately? You too, Diana. Updated. Thank you all for the supportive comments and awards. Several people asked if Lily ever found out about her half-siblings. Yes, eventually. That's coming in the next part. And to those asking if James tried to stop me at the party, oh, he definitely tried. Have you ever seen a man's career implode in real time? It's quite a sight. Charles's face registered confusion as he glanced between Vivian and me, then at James's ashen expression. Of course. Let's use my office. Charles, this is ridiculous, James protested, that million-dollar smile now strained at the edges. Diana's upset about some personal matters. She's not thinking clearly. Charles studied James for a moment, then turned to his wife. Marilyn, would you mind giving us a few minutes? As we walked toward the executive offices, James tried one last desperate attempt, hissing in my ear. You're destroying our family. I stopped and looked him straight in the eyes. You already did that. I'm just making sure you pay for it. In Charles's office, Mark was waiting with 2 security guards and a man I didn't recognize, who was introduced as an FBI financial crimes specialist. James looked like he might be sick. Sit down, Charles ordered, his jovial demeanor completely gone. All of you. I handed Charles my folder while Vivian distributed copies to everyone else. Page 3 shows the initial transfers to Global Consulting Partners, a shell company registered to a P.O. box in the Caymans. Page 7 shows how those funds were then routed through 3 additional shells before landing in personal accounts controlled by James. Charles flipped through the documents, his face darkening with each page. James, is this true? James loosened his tie, eyes darting around the room. Charles, this is a misunderstanding. Diana's found some draft documents, early modeling that was never implemented. The account numbers, dates, and amounts all match transfers that cleared our books. Mark interrupted. We've verified everything independently. You helped her? James's voice rose, incredulous. You stabbed me in the back? You stole nearly $6 million, Mark replied. You stabbed yourself. The FBI agent cleared his throat. Mr. Bennett, I should advise you that anything you say, this is absurd. James stood up suddenly. I don't have to listen to this. I'm leaving. The security guards moved to block the door. Sit. Down. Charles's voice was deadly quiet. You'll listen to every word, and then you'll be escorted from the building. Your security access has already been revoked, and your office is being packed up as we speak. James collapsed back into his chair, the fight draining out of him. You can't do this. We already have, Vivian said. The police have a warrant for your devices and financial records. The board has been briefed and approved your immediate termination for cause. I watched as 15 years of marriage ended in a 20-minute meeting, complete with formal language about cooperation with authorities and the surrender of company property. When it was over, the security guards escorted James out through a side entrance, away from the party still in full swing. Charles turned to me once James was gone. Diana, I can't begin to express how sorry I am, both personally and professionally. I nodded, a strange numbness settling over me. I appreciate that, Charles. The company will fully cooperate with your personal legal actions as well, Vivian added. And we'd like to make things right however we can. Lily's college fund, I said immediately. That's all I care about right now. Charles exchanged glances with Vivian and Mark. Consider it done, and more. We'll establish a full scholarship in her name. I hadn't expected that. Thank you. Actually, Mark said hesitantly, there's something else we'd like to discuss. When you're ready, a position here, we could use someone with your skills on our risk management team. For the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile form. Let me get through my divorce first. Then we'll talk. I left the party the way I had arrived, alone, head held high. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed with a text from Melissa Crawford. We need to talk. I stared at those 4 words, my hands shaking slightly. I didn't know what she knew, what James had told her about me, if anything. Did she think I was the other woman? Did she know about the money, the crimes? I typed back. Yes, we do, not just for us. Her reply came quickly. For the children, all of them. I sat in my car for a long time, thinking about Lily, about the 2 children in Riverside who shared her blood, about the conversations to come. Then I drove home to tell my daughter the truth. The next few months were a hurricane of legal proceedings, FBI interviews, and emotional reckonings. James was charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and embezzlement. He pled guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, 8 years instead of 20. Financial restitution was part of the deal, though his assets had already been frozen. Telling Lily was the hardest part. I waited until the weekend after the Christmas party, after consulting with a therapist about the best approach. We sat in our kitchen, the same place where I'd confronted James. Dad's been arrested, I started, watching her face crumple in confusion. What? Why? Is this some kind of joke? I took her hands. Honey, there's no easy way to say this. Your father has another family. He's been living a double life for years. Her face went blank, uncomprehending. What are you talking about? I explained. Everything. The missing college fund, the house in Riverside, the half-siblings she never knew existed. She listened in stunned silence, then ran to the bathroom and vomited. I held her hair back, my heart breaking for her all over again. I hate him, she whispered later, curled up on her bed. I never want to see him again. That's your choice, I told her. And I'll support whatever you decide. But those children, they're innocent in this, just like you. Meeting Melissa and her children, James and Sophia, was surreal. Melissa had believed James was divorced, that I was his difficult ex who refused to let go. The shock on her face when the FBI showed up at her door mirrored my own when I'd first discovered the truth. I never would have, if I'd known, she kept saying, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. I know. And strangely, I did. We were both victims of James's extraordinary capacity for deception. 2 months after James's sentencing, Lily asked to meet her half-siblings. It was awkward, painful, but necessary. 7-year-old James and 5-year-old Sophia were confused and scared, their father suddenly gone, their world turned inside out. Lily, despite her pain, showed a maturity that made my chest ache with pride. It's not your fault, she told them quietly, when little James asked if his daddy was a bad person. Sometimes people we love make bad choices. It doesn't mean they didn't love us. Melissa and I developed an unexpected alliance, then a friendship of sorts. Both of us rebuilding lives shattered by the same man. She sold the Riverside house and moved closer to her parents. I sold our home in Oakwood Heights and bought a smaller place closer to Lily's school. Charles made good on his promise. Meridian established the Lily Bennett Merit Scholarship, fully funding her education at any university she chose. They also offered me a position as director of risk assessment, with a salary that made me financially independent for the first time in 16 years. Lily was accepted to Columbia, her dream school, where she decided to major in psychology. I want to understand why people do what Dad did, she explained. James writes to her sometimes. She doesn't respond, not yet. Maybe someday. As for me, I found an unexpected peace. The night of the Christmas party, after leaving Meridian, I'd driven to our empty house, kicked off my heels, and danced alone in the kitchen. Really danced, wild and free, like I hadn't done since college. It wasn't joy exactly. It was liberation. 1 year after James's sentencing, I launched my own consulting firm, Integrity Financial Forensics. We specialize in detecting family financial fraud, spouses hiding assets, parents stealing from children, caretakers draining accounts. My first client was referred by Melissa, who now works as my office manager. Life rebuilds in strange ways. The family I thought I had is gone, but in its place is something different, harder earned, more honest. Lily is thriving. I'm using my skills to help others. And sometimes when I see James Jr. and Sophia playing with Lily during our monthly dinners, I think maybe there's justice in that too. That despite James's betrayal, something good emerged. From the wreckage. Updated. This will be my final update. Thank you all for following this crazy journey. Many asked if I found someone new. Not yet, but I'm open to it now. Life's too short to close doors. The kids are doing well. Lily's a sophomore now, and the little ones visit monthly. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after betrayal? It's painful, but sometimes what you build is stronger than what you lost.